It's a very good afternoon to all our viewers and welcome to our 3 p.m. English News Bulletin. My name is Angie Meher and I'm delighted to be in the company of my dear colleague Shireen Aidel. Good afternoon to you, Shireen.
Good afternoon, Angie. Good afternoon, dear viewers. And we start with a look at the major headlines. President Fattah al-Sisi announces Egypt's joining to global alliance to combat poverty and hunger. Israeli occupation airstrikes hit central Beirut near key government buildings.
Welcome back. President Fattah al-Sisi announced that Egypt has joined the global alliance to combat poverty and hunger. The president's remarks came on the sidelines of the G20 summit in the Brazilian city of Rio de Janeiro, where he highlighted the importance of facing these challenges as they represent the main reason of inequality worldwide. President al-Sisi also asserted that Egypt believes there's no way to combat hunger and poverty and achieve sustainable development goals except by establishing a balanced international partnership with developing countries. In his statement, the president also affirmed the importance of an immediate halt to all kinds of violence and humanitarian catastrophes in Gaza and Lebanon.
And on the sidelines of the G20 summit in the Brazilian city of Rio de Janeiro, President Fattah al-Sisi met with Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, Sheikh Khalid bin Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. The meeting addressed ways to enhance close relations between the two countries in light of strong historical ties they share at the popular and official levels. The meeting also emphasized the two countries' keenness to continue coordination in various fields to achieve aspirations of their peoples for development and progress. President al-Sisi also met on the sidelines of the G20 summit with the President of Tanzania, Samia Hassan. The meeting focused on ways to deepen historic and strong brotherly relations between the two countries in light of shared keenness in a bid to enhance all forms of cooperation, especially in economic and trade files. The meeting further addressed ways of strengthening cooperation among Nile Basin countries to enhance coordination and consensus among them with focus on achieving interests of the people. The summit of the group of 20 leading economists in Rio de Janeiro produced a joint declaration endorsed by group members but fell short of complete unanimity.
The summit succeeded in addressing most topics. Host Brazil had prioritized addressing both ongoing major wars, a global pact to fight hunger, taxation of the world's wealthiest people, and changes to global governance. We have more details in this report.
Leaders from the group of 20 major economies on Monday issued a joint statement highlighting the suffering caused by conflicts in Gaza and Ukraine, while calling for cooperation on climate change, poverty, and tax policy. G20 leaders meeting at Rio de Janeiro's Modern Art Museum for a two-day summit tackled an agenda that reflected a shifting global order, trying to shore up multilateral consensus before U.S. President-elect Donald Trump returns to power in January. Their discussions of trade, climate change, and international security will run up against the sharp U.S. policy changes that Trump vows upon taking office, from tariffs to the promise of a negotiated solution to the war in Ukraine. The leaders' statement expressed deep concern about the catastrophic humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip and called urgently for more aid and protection for civilians, along with the comprehensive ceasefire in Gaza and Lebanon. In their statement, leaders agreed the world needs to reach a deal by the end of the United Nations COP29 Climate Change Summit in Azerbaijan on a new financial goal for how much money rich nations must provide to poorer developing nations. COP29 officials had called on the G20 leaders for a strong signal to help reach the impasse on climate finance. As host of this year's G20 meetings, Brazil expanded the group's focus on extreme poverty and hunger while introducing debate on cooperation to fairly tax the world's wealthiest, topics also highlighted in the leaders' joint statement. Brazilian President Luiz da Silva opened the summit on Monday with the launch of a global alliance to combat poverty and hunger with backing from more than 80 countries along with multilateral banks.
The Israeli military claimed on Tuesday that some 40 projectiles were fired from Lebanon into central and northern Israel, with 5 people were likely injured. Israeli occupation said they were searching the impact sites from projectiles intercepted by Israel's air defense systems, but did not report any serious damage. Earlier, Israel said a rocket strike killed a woman in the northern Israeli town of Shafram, east of the Haifa area. Israeli occupation forces claim that Lebanese movement Hezbollah fired around 100 projectiles from Lebanon towards Israel on an overnight raid, whilst Israel's Air Force carried out more deadly strikes on Beirut.
An Israeli occupation airstrike slammed into densely populated residential area in Lebanon's capital near key governmental and diplomatic buildings, killing at least 5 people as the U.S. pressed ahead with ceasefire efforts. Lebanon's state-run national news agency said 2 missiles hit the area of Zukak al-Balat neighborhood where local UN headquarters and Lebanon's parliament and prime minister's office are located. The Israeli occupation had no immediate comment on the strike, which also wounded 24 people, according to Lebanese Health Ministry.
U.S. envoys arrived in Beirut to meet with Lebanese officials about a possible ceasefire in the Israeli occupation and Hezbollah war. Senior advisor to the U.S. President Joe Biden arrived Tuesday, day after Hezbollah reportedly gave a positive response to a U.S. draft proposal to end the war, which has been ongoing for more than 13 months. The U.S. has been working on a proposal to end hostilities that would remove Israeli occupation ground forces from Lebanon and push Hezbollah forces away from the Israeli occupation border. More Lebanese troops and UN peacekeepers would be sent to the buffer zone in southern Lebanon as part of the deal.
The United Nations said Tuesday that over 200 children have been killed in Lebanon in less than 2 months since Israel escalated its attacks targeting Hezbollah. Spokesman for the UN Children's Agency, UNICEF, James Elder, told reporters in Geneva that over the last 2 months in Lebanon, an average of 3 children have been killed every single day. Elder said that since the war erupted in Gaza after October 7th last year, at least 231 children had been killed in Lebanon.
Moving to the situation on the ground in Gaza, where Israeli occupation military strikes across the Gaza Strip killed 20 Palestinians, including 6 people who were killed on attacks and tents housing displaced families. 4 people, 2 of them children, were killed in an Israeli airstrike on a tent encampment in the coastal area of al-Mawasi, designated as a humanitarian zone, where 2 were killed in temporary shelters in the southern city of Rafah and another in drone fire. In Bethlehem town in northern Gaza, medics said an Israeli missile struck a house, killing at least 2 people and wounding several others. Elsewhere, an Israeli airstrike killed 4 people in the Nusayrat camp in central Gaza Strip.
Members of the United Nations Security Council called on Monday for a surge in assistance to reach people in need in Israeli besieged Gaza, warning that the situation in the Palestinian enclave was getting worse. British Foreign Secretary David Lammy said there needs to be a huge rise in aid to Gaza, where most of the population of 2.3 million has been displaced, and health officials in the coastal enclave say that more than 43,922 Palestinians have been killed in the war.
Russian President Vladimir Putin on Tuesday signed a revised nuclear doctrine declaring that a conventional attack on Russia by any nation that is supported by nuclear power will be considered a joint attack on his country. Putin's endorsement of the new nuclear deterrent policy comes on the one 1,000th day after he sent troops into Ukraine on February 24, 2022. It follows U.S. President Joe Biden's decision to let Ukraine strike targets inside Russia with U.S.-supplied longer-range missiles. Signing of the doctrine, which says that any massive aerial attack on Russia could trigger a nuclear response, reflects Putin's readiness to threaten use of the country's nuclear arsenal to force the West to back down as Moscow presses a slow-moving offensive in Ukraine.
Eight people, including a child, were killed in a Russian drone attack on Ukraine's northeastern region of Sumy. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said that every new Russian strike only confirms Russian President Vladimir Putin's true intentions, as he wants the war to continue. He is not interested in talking about peace. The drone attack overnight on residential building in the small town of Kharkiv, bordering Russia, also wounded 12 people, including 2 children. Ukraine's Air Force said it had shot down 51 drones and lost track of 30 more after Russia launched 87 drones overnight. Egypt launched the National Climate Change Strategy 2025, which is designed to consolidate all aspects of climate change in one document to be a basic reference that ensures the integration of climate change dimensions into general planning of all sectors in the country. The Ministry of Electricity and Renewable Energy has taken several measures aimed at increasing contribution of new and renewable energy, which planned to reach 42% of the total electrical energy produced in 2035. In this context, Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli presided over a meeting on Tuesday with Finance Minister Ahmed Kojak and Minister of Petroleum, Mineral Resources Engineer Karim Badawi. During the meeting, they follow up on initiative of transferring vehicles to work with natural gas. The Prime Minister pointed out that they will start transferring the governmental vehicles to work with natural gas and will put a plan to increase number of vehicles aimed to be changed. Madbouli also asserted that this transferring is compatible with the state's measures to use clean fuel.
The Minister of Housing, Utilities and Urban Communities held a meeting on Tuesday with Sheikh Hassan al-Sharbali, one of the major Saudi investors in Egypt, and his working groups. During the meeting, they discussed the available cooperation opportunities, removing any obstacles, and the follow-up on implementation status of a number of projects in the presence of representatives from the Ministry of Housing.
The International Monetary Fund warned that tit-for-tat tariffs could undermine Asia's economic prospects, raise costs, and disrupt supply chains, even as it expects the region to remain a key engine of growth for the global economy. IMF Asia-Pacific Director said at a forum in Cebu on systematic risk that the tit-for-tat retaliatory tariffs leads to longer and less efficient supply chains. The director remarks come amid concerns over U.S. President Donald Trump's plan to impose 60% tariff on Chinese goods and at least 10% levy on all other imports.
Moving to the exciting world of sports, the Egyptian national team will play against Botswana on Tuesday in the 6th round of the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers, Group C. The match will be played at the Air Defense Stadium at 5 p.m. Cairo local time. 7-time African champions have already secured their place in the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations in Morocco by leading their group with 2 games to spare following a 1-0 away victory against Mauritania in October, claiming a perfect 12 points.
Captain Virgil van Dijk and midfielder Frankie de Jong have both been released from international duty this week, will not travel for Netherlands' Last Nation League group game against Bosnia and Herzegovina. The Dutch will not call up any replacements, with the Koeman still able to pick from 23 players for Tuesday's ground A3 clash in Zenica. Both De Jong and Van Dijk played in Saturday's 4-0 win over Hungary in Amsterdam, which secured second place in the group for the Dutch and progress to the Nations League quarterfinals in March.
Finally, to basketball, Damian Lillard hit a driving layup with 3.9 seconds left to give the Milwaukee Bucks a 101-100 victory over Houston that snapped the Rockets' 5-game winning streak. Lillard scored 18 points after missing the previous 3 games whilst in the concussion protocol. The Rockets rallied from a 14-point third-quarter deficit to take the lead early in the fourth quarter and stayed ahead until Lillard's decisive basket. Giannis Antetokounmpo blocked a shot by Houston's Alperen Sengun with 20 seconds left.
And the post-up from Sengun gets his own miss.
With that, ladies and gentlemen, we wrap up our news bulletin here on LTV International, and thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much, Shireen.
Thank you, Angie. Dear viewers, stay tuned for more updates coming on the top of the hour.